Finally hit it, the Madonna whore complex. Welcome, guys, another episode of Practical Female Psychology. We are on episode 17, chapter 16. It's going to be, I think, 18 chapters altogether, so we're nearing the end, boys. And this one is the Madonna whore complex. If you don't know, I'll explain it to you here, and let's get into it. We'll start off with the Madonna whore complex itself. Then, what is the Madonna whore complex? Where does it come from? Do I have the complex? How does a man avoid being harmed by it and loving a woman for who she is and not who you want her to be? So we'll start off here with a quote. The Madonna whore complex is a widespread phenomenon of modern life. We can properly call it a meme or a mind virus that affects the majority of people today, both men and women. The presence of this meme directly contributes to sexual frustration in both men and women, with men relegating to consuming pornography and women consuming romance novels, both in astonishing quantities. Both the porn and the novel industry are worth billions of dollars every single year. If you doubt this, by the way, go on to Amazon, start checking the trashy romance novel section, and you'll see those chicks are all making like Harry Potter levels of money. It's absolutely insane for like just $3 ebooks. So say what you will about it. I guess at least for girls, they have to pay a little bit towards it. Some of the points that we're going to see coming up in here, I may not mention it every time, but I want you to think about what we always refer to as the tradcon fantasy. The white picket fence. I just want a wife that'll love me and be the great mother to my kids, and she puts on a sundress and a summer hat and sits in a cornfield and takes photos of her chastity and all of that nonsense. From the guy side of things, it's the idea that he gets to have more of a motherly person in his life as opposed to like a girl that he sleeps with and has fun with, and part of it is sour grapes. I never had this when I was young, so I don't want this when I'm older. Part of it too, from the female side, is actually kind of interesting. They lead with it. Like when a girl hits, that's the common joke, she hits 28, all of a sudden she puts on a sun hat, covers up the tattoos, a summer dress, takes shots in a cornfield, and everybody thinks she's a nice Madonna-y girl. You think of it as slut shaming, but it's essentially the same thing. And the part we're trying to overcome here is thinking about women in this bimodal mechanism, like I said, Morloi and Eloi, or Eloi and Morlocks. That's the one. So funny enough, there does not appear to be a single universally accepted definition of Madonna whore complex. According to the one definition we like, the Madonna whore complex refers to the phenomenon where men view their mates as sacred love objects, too pure to be sullied with the ugliness of sexual interaction like a Madonna. If you have the book with you, and if you don't have it, you shouldn't be watching these series. These are meant to be a supplement, not a replacement, by the way. They have like 5 or 6 different, like very common through science and literature and biblical terms, how it's defined. Everybody kind of knows though, like in your mind, you know this. And you're going to see tests of it everywhere. When people talk about women as if they're like, oh, those ones are just broken and damaged, then those are always the girls that never adhere to whatever model of women perfection you have in your head. Or, oh, that one will make a good wife and mother. It's kind of like the male doing to women equivalent of girls saying, oh, you'll make somebody a great husband someday, as opposed to like, I want to ride you now like it's going out of style. So where does it come from? This is a good question. I'm not going to go too far into it because I hate the navel-gazing aspect to this. Not that it matters, but for sake of completeness, let's go on here. Quoting, many men suffer because they automatically place their girlfriends or wives in the Madonna category, but they still secretly long for sex with a whore. In this case, the woman may suffer from a great deal of sexual frustration, and she may adopt her man's view that too much of enjoyment is shameful. In this case, she will gradually lose her ability to be uninhibited with her man and begin to avoid sex with him. Men will often complain that their good girlfriend no longer wants to sleep with them, and they'll be astonished when she decides to seek out somebody else, one who understands her needs as a woman. There's a lot of really insidious parts of this. So first off, something that I've seen, and I've heard like dozens of examples of guys who have been cheated on, and that's usually how they find their way to our doorstep, right? it's not even that they got cheated on, like that's bad enough, but it's always the things that she wouldn't do with him, the things that he always liked and she would never do. There's like a certain amount of like embarrassment to it. And that's, again, if you don't learn how to look at it properly, it can look like that. It's just, oh, she's teaching me a lesson. She knows that I love that. And why is she doing that with him? In reality, partially it's because of the guy's influence, treating her like the Madonna and not like a normal person. Because usually when it comes to sex, women are the more, they receive, they don't initiate. So in some cases, maybe she does know that this is his drive. She has that drive as like an inner limbic brain thing. And then by the time somebody comes around that can actually make her express it, that's the first thing she goes for. So it's almost like a way of saying, this could have been you if you didn't screw it up. Now, I want to give the impression there's like a blame and a fault here. That's not the case at all. I honestly hate when people start doing that. Unless they're 8 years old, there's no place in this kind of stuff, no place within the red pill for looking for blame and fault. You're just looking for solutions to your problem at hand. And in this case, it's your wife is acting like Madonna when you want her to act like that chick from Babylon. Do I have the complex? Well, do you? If you possess a belief that good girls do not enjoy sex in the same way that bad girls do, you have the complex. If you're afraid to be sexually aggressive with your wife or girlfriend and yet rub out some knuckle children regularly, you probably have this complex. If you find yourself repeating and laughing at common jokes such as like all men are pigs or he can't help it, he's a guy, then that would be another indication. If you regularly engage in pussy-whipped, tiptoe on eggshells type behavior around your women that you're sexually attracted to, then you definitely have this issue. Again, this is why you're going to notice red pill guys have a huge issue with a lot of like the tradcon mental models out there. You know, treat her like a princess. Don't let her drive anywhere. That like soft Sierra Law stuff. You can tell just by the way they talk. They separate women into two categories. There's the bad ones, the whores of Babylon, and then the good ones, the motherly Madonna. Which sounds great, except for when you're in a marriage and you're going to have needs, putting the girl into one category or the other is just either going to make her the girl that's absolutely crazy and tries to stab you, or the kind of girl that basically shuts it off, feels ashamed to even like this stuff, and goes back to her novels while you go into the bedroom and read something for work. So just remember this too. Now again, I keep calling them, they're the receptive gender when it comes to sex, so I don't want to say it's a conscious decision on girls' end. It's just, they're in the environment, and if you are married to her, even if it's a dead marriage, you're still considered some part of there like a hypergamous best option. Or at least best option for now. Nothing's better has come along and she's still got enough love there. You're basically riding the high that you had on your wedding day, and you're milking that thing for all it's worth. But if you create this environment, you can't help but not be surprised when the girl responds accordingly. So there's the big question. How do you stop from having this affect you negatively? Start with the quote. So what's really astonishing about the existence of the complex is the fact that women enjoy sex as much and more often times than men do. Only one needs to take a look at the typical romance novel or some female authored erotica like Nancy Friday's My Secret Garden, just to realize that women have a wonderfully explicit sexual imagination and desire. Yeah, I mean, this is where, and I always hate when people do this, because you get this same argument. Women will say, I like sex just as much as guys do. And guys are like, no way, because testosterone's the sex organ or the sex hormone, and we got like 17 times of it. And then they bicker and they argue, and nobody smashes anybody. Doesn't do us any favors. And they're not wrong. So men are obviously hornier than women. Testosterone is the horniness hormone. But if you go into other books like Dr. David Buss and Cindy Minson's Why Women Have Sex, they list all kinds of reasons that women end up having sex, of which horniness is like the 752nd reason out of 800. But that's the point. You take all those complex different reasons, you know, sometimes it's to establish status, sometimes I think some of the weirder reasons were she just wanted him to leave her alone so she'd get some sleep. Some girls had trouble sleeping and they needed it like a melatonin. Some girls just didn't want to go home and it was too cold to go outside. Whatever reason there are, you just got to trust that a girl knows what she's doing and give her the benefit of the doubt on this one, and understand that while they may not be nearly as horny as guys are, through those all kinds of different reasons that they have, yeah, you're generally going to have people who could eventually have their libidos match in one form or another. It's not because somebody's high libido and low libido like it's some kind of genetic thing. It's just because in the same way that you regulate your testosterone to make sure you're rip-roaring, ready to go oftentimes, having good game allows you to calibrate her desire to match yours. And that's why you'll notice that most relationships that have healthy sex lives anyway, those ones there, nobody seems to be dissatisfied. Everybody seems to be happy with as much as they're getting, and there's a reason for that. It's because, again, leadership. Guys lead the relationship. It's more than just about doing the dishes, fellas. Sometimes it's about leading it sexually, setting expectations, and then using game to establish what they are and make sure that you got an enthusiastic, willing participant, which I think they call genuine desire. Charles Bukowski, Jordan Peterson, Neil Strauss. I like these guys. Add some salt to cover up the bitterness of middle-aged soccer moms and put in the oven for 45 minutes. Optionally, you can take from all this stuff what you want and leave the rest. You ain't shit, and that's okay. This is the most important part. Love a woman for who she is. The conditional love is where you love a woman for who and what she is and not for who you think she should be. When a man is forced by circumstances to give a woman conditional love, he feels bad inside. And unfortunately, men do not talk about this sort of thing with each other. As the final chapter, this is extremely important. Like, a lot of guys hate the idea of putting constraints. Something about like a standard on a girl, it just drives them nuts. Having said that, I have a feeling this is that lumped in the category of men raised as defective women, because for some reason, I don't know what's happened in the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 years, women hate the idea of expectations. They get extremely mad. Just ask me how I know. I'll go back to one of my tweets where I talk about women learning to cook as well as I can, and I'll show you 500 chicks that are just super angry and lashing out and calling me all kinds of weird names. It's not harassment though, because it's only harassment if I did it back, which I don't. But there has to be a conditionality to it, because conditional love actually means you're looking at the person in front of you. And I don't know who to quote on this one. I want to say it's Nietzsche, but it might not be. Where it's the image you have in your head of the woman in front of you can only be disappointed by actually talking to her in real life. It's because we're not the gender that sees people in front of us. We're not pragmatic that way. That's women. We are the more romantic gender. When we see a girl there, she's the perfect one. She's a 9. That's why guys are talking about, oh, this is a 9 and a 10, and other guys look who are interested in her, and it's like, that's a 4, dude. What are you talking about? But that's the point. Our egos actually paint a picture of a woman that the one in front of us can't possibly meet. And that's that unconditional love. That's part of it anyway. And that's the problem. When guys fall in love with their ego and not in front of the girl, they end up doing stupid things, and they end up attaching their ego into treating this girl like a princess or a Madonna. And in that case, they avoid treating her like the lady from Babylon. They stop treating her like a sexual woman. They start having a good relationship. She starts to get sexually frustrated. She gets into the romance novels. Next thing you know, she's out back in the dumpster talking to the neighbor about the party they had last weekend. I don't know what kind of reference that is, but whatever. But that's the point. There is, and a lot of this is like Catholic and Christian and Protestant. Like, I'll put it this way. Your entire life, everybody's told sex is bad. You have sex once, you'll get AIDS, you'll die. Sex is wrong, sex is evil, sex is evil, sex is evil. 20 years of that, 18 years, 25, I don't know, however long the preacher's been saying it to you. Then all of a sudden, now that you get married, yeah, it's good. And they kind of hand wave it away. So a lot of people end up having this mental firmware that just makes them incapable of understanding this stuff. And so, again, get into the books, look into this stuff. The next chapter is going to be dealing with the Madonna horror complex. I say it's definitely worth it. Understand that the way you're thinking about women isn't realistic. It's completely unrealistic. It's Morlocks and Eloi. It's, oh, there's only 2 types of women. They're the bad ones that are damaged and they like sex and they do all this great stuff, but they're kind of whores. And then there's these ones that are good and they're sweet and they're kind and they wear a sun hat and a summer dress and they sit in a cornfield and they'll give me 18 babies, but they might give me a pity hand job on the birthday celebration or maybe July 4th. And that's not what we want here. The point is, and I don't care if it's a relationship for an evening, a weekend, a month, a year, a lifetime. This is what matters. And part of this is understanding why when we say things like not to be judgmental towards women and they'll open themselves up to you in whatever way you want to take that. By not being judgmental, it's not just about quietly shaming them inside and then thinking whatever. Just understanding, okay, these are chicks, they act like chicks. Chicks are human beings. All right, fair enough. What do human beings do? They rub uglies. Yeah, do they cheat on you? Well, if you're not the best option, if she's sexually frustrated, if something better came along and she was never into you anyway, sure. But if you're doing your job right, God forbid, act to God, something happens, doesn't give you cancer, some kind of external event that's outside of your control, you can largely hold on to that for any length of time. And then the second part of that, which is more advanced, is just learning how to deal with this as the fleeting moment it is. It's going to last as long as it lasts. It's as good as long as you make it good. And sometimes it's not going to be, and there's nothing you can do about it. But again, it's just laissez-faire. Things happen. Stuff happens. People have fun. Things move on. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.